Have you heard of Carlos Fonseca dying in 2013, who was about to start exploring a cave system called the Devil's Spring in Ginnie Springs, Florida? The next day, there were rumors on a few diving forums that Carlos had died while he was in the system. No one really knows how he died, but do you believe the rumors about the Devil's Spring, Florida to be the Devil's Cave? Stay tuned to Cave Hazards to know everything. Most people probably think of beaches, theme parks, and outlet shopping when they think of Florida. But we think of underwater caves when we think of Florida. The Sunshine State is situated on a bed of limestone through which fresh water seeps. The end result is a network of tunnels stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the Earth's surface, formed by dozens of springs. Scuba divers have been exploring these caves for decades. They have pushed the limits back by thousands of meters and found some truly amazing things. When the lights are turned on, the dark chambers show some truly jaw-dropping things, like a scene from a science fiction movie. You may have swum through tunnels that were only as big as the hallway in your house, only to find yourself floating in a room that could fit a small cathedral. Most of the time, the water in these tunnels and caves is clear as glass, and it feels almost supernatural to float in them. When you turn off your light, it's almost impossible to describe how dark it is. Not being able to see your hand right in front of your face is a start, and a total lack of light gives you a little more of an idea. The eyes try hard to see something but can't find anything. Cave diving is probably the most similar thing I'll ever do to being in space. Don't get me wrong, this kind of scuba diving is very risky. In fact, it's the most dangerous way to play the sport anywhere in the world. When you are a half-kilometer inside the Earth and maybe more than 50 meters deep, you don't have much room for error. Before you can even poke your head into one of these caves, you have to train hard. Safety rules have to be followed in the letter. Your gear needs to be the best, and your partners need to have as much or more experience as you do. Teamwork is not just a good idea, it's a rule that can't be broken. Even so, many people still die in those situations. In general, about 10 cave divers die every year, according to a report in the International Journal of Aquatic Research and Education. Even though that may not seem like a lot, there are only a few thousand cave divers in the world. Compare that to the fact that about 1 out of every 15,000 people who dive for fun dies every year, which is really tragic. You would be very shocked to hear that Carlos Fonseca died while diving there. He had written on Facebook that he was in Ginnie Springs, Florida, and about to start exploring the Devil's Spring, a cave system. The next day, there were rumors on a few diving forums that Carlos had died while he was in the system. No one really knows how he died. A few people who saw what happened, and Carlos' diving buddies, thought he might have breathed in the wrong mix of gases. You may already know that pure oxygen below 6 meters is dangerous. Divers bring it with them to cut down on decompression time, but they can only breathe it when they are close to the surface. Some people think Carlos may have accidentally chosen the wrong tank and breathed pure oxygen at depths of more than 20 meters. That made him have a seizure that killed him in the end. But at this point, all of that is just a guess. So, we'll find out what really happened at some point. So you can imagine how surprised everyone was when the same online forums that had wrongly said what caused his death started to attack Carlos in a way that shocked us. One person said in a mean way that his supposed mistake was a diving one-on-one mistake. Others joined in and started making personal attacks on him, saying that Carlos cared more about his reputation as a diver than his safety, and that he was always needing to boost his achievements. One person who was especially mean said that saving Carlos was like pushing a 240-pound pork chop through a tunnel. On the other hand, we have given a lot of consideration to the reasons why people would act in such a way. When we learn that a friend or coworker has passed away as a result of a sad car accident, the majority of us don't immediately begin making jokes about the victim's driving abilities, do we? Instead, they come to the conclusion that errors are an inevitable part of life and mourn the loss of what they had. When it comes to extreme diving, however, we've witnessed a situation similar to this feeding frenzy before. So what drives people to behave in such a manner? The first thing that comes to our mind is that it could be because they are terrified. Cave diving is without a doubt one of those activities that should be avoided at all costs. If, on the other hand, you can state that an accident occurred because someone else was irresponsible or foolish, you might be able to persuade yourself that you will never repeat the behavior that caused the disaster. Saying that other people are stupid is a strategy that can be used to avoid getting into difficulties. If you are able to identify a failing in someone who has recently perished in an accident, you can reassure yourself that you do not share that failing, so significantly reducing the likelihood that you will also perish in a similar manner. Our second theory is that people may behave in this manner because it is in their nature to do so, especially in our younger years. Each of us harbors at least a glimmer of hope that we shall outlive our physical bodies. When we give it some thought, we eventually come to the conclusion that we shall all perish. Despite this, the vast majority of us believe that even if it has an effect on us, we won't have to deal with the consequences of it until some unspecified point in the future. Perhaps the constant presence of death in the world enrages people. Our final opinion is that the peculiar response that we've seen on the internet to Carlos' passing could be an updated version of an old Zen story. A teacher and an apprentice are seen sitting side by side on the sand as they draw two parallel lines. He then inquires about the student's strategy for increasing the size of the line on the left. A swift division through the middle of the line on the right is made by the student. The maestro gives a little shake of his head and then extends the left line instead. The takeaway here is that you should never strive to shorten your own line. Rather, you should work to make it longer. Do some individuals believe that criticizing Carlos, it will make them look greater than they already are? Now, you must be sure. I'm not going to pretend that I've never been in a rush to decide something or form an opinion on someone else. On the other hand, we frequently have a tendency to form hasty judgments regarding matters that we do not have sufficient knowledge of. We are not going to pretend that cave diving doesn't give us butterflies in our stomachs. We have to admit that we get a little nervous whenever we go into a cave for some reason. Perhaps this is a fortunate turn of events. In addition, we are not oblivious to the reality that no one is flawless. Carlos lived his life to the absolute fullest, which is the kind of thing that gets people into conflict with other people. But at this point in time, we would rather think about Carlos with fondness than criticize what he did in the end. We should rather remember Carlos with affection. Despite the fact that Carlos passed away there, do you still plan on going to Florida to explore the cave systems that are there? Do let me know in the comments below. That's all for today. Hope you all liked our video, so don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more of our incredible videos. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.